Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today. I am Marsh on a Monday morning post-championship weekend morning, and here to recap all of it is joining us is Siege. Good morning, Siege. Happy Monday. Happy Hoopsteria Monday, matchup Monday coming up later tonight. We had, 8 championship games over the weekend, all of which varying amounts of entertainment. But Siege, we got to break down all of it. I want to talk most impactful wins and losses, but let's start with the most surprising. To you, what was the most surprising conference championship game outcome?
To be honest, I think most surprising has to be Jackson State's win over Memphis, just because I think that was to me the championship matchup where there was the most perceived difference in the two teams, not just perceived, but talent level, success level throughout the season, all of that. Not that Jackson State's not a good team; they were better than a lot of other teams, but in terms of the difference in the two teams contending, I think that was the largest spread. So for me, that was by definition the most surprising outcome.
I will see Jackson State and not disagree wholeheartedly. I think the dominance in which they were able to do that on the road, 15
Yep.
points. A lot of that comes in the second half where they just pulled away late. I talked about this back on Friday. I thought D. Woodley was just the better version of Lace Darius Outlaw on Thursday night in a season in which I don't think he's traditionally been that guy. To me, though, it was the dominant performance of UCLA. Their ability to be just that game against Utah was never close. I mean, from the jump, UCLA looked like the better team. To me, the biggest key to that UCLA game was if UCLA sets the tempo, plays fast, forces this team to try to beat them, Utah with an up-tempo game, UCLA was going to win, and that's exactly what happened, and they blew them out of the water.
They did, and to me, it was surprising on the one hand because any conference title game where you've got a 20+ point win is surprising to an extent because this is supposed to be the two best teams in the conference. What wasn't surprising to me was that UCLA is capable of this. I think we've seen them as a team that's either going to be a little inefficient with their scoring and maybe, put up some shots we don't love. They've got a little tighter through the end of the season. I'm not surprised that they have the ability to do this with a guy like Jalen Snow leading the way. This team is very impressive. But, yeah, I mean, anytime I see a 26-point victory in a conference championship, especially between two ranked teams, that certainly isn't what I expected.
What do you make of home teams? I mean, because UCLA was one of the few home teams to really lead their way here. But what do you make of the home teams not really getting things done in the championship games of Hoopsteria?
I don't really know what to make of it. If anything, what I would say is that it's a cautionary tale for anyone who maybe hasn't watched enough college hoops, especially this year. We've had an inordinate amount of parity going on through, I would say, the mid ranks of SimWorld U. I would say that the top 10 of SimWorld U has been fairly consistent. That they're a little above and beyond, specifically the top 5 or 6. But what I take from this is you really can't take any game for granted. Whether you're at home, whether you're away, whether you have more fans than the other team does in the building, whatever it may be, anything can happen in any given game. And it certainly is surprising that it went that way with so few home teams, which really is such a big advantage, especially in a conference championship game.
You
That
would
that
think.
should be that. Yeah, I guess I can't even say that's an advantage anymore. It seems like a disadvantage, and maybe that has to do with teams coming in and because they know they're the underdog, they showed out. I don't. That's the only thing I can make of it, but it's certainly a little puzzling. And I'm interested to see the impact it could have going into Hoopsteria. Does that shake some teams' confidence? Does that? It certainly is a boost of confidence for away teams that are able to, beat their higher regarded, conference mate in a championship game. But it's certainly a very interesting thing. And I don't want to say it's an anomaly, Marsh, because you never know. But I almost feel like it's an anomaly the way that it went this season.
Well, you mentioned impactful, so let's go there. Of the 8 conference championship wins, which one was the most impactful as it relates to Hoops area?
Oh, to me, it was by far. Maybe not by far. I've got a second one that to me is right up there, but it's only impactful one side. I think this one I'm about to mention is impactful on both sides. But in terms of win, I think Georgetown or Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Georgetown's because I think Georgetown went from being likely a 3 seed, maybe even a 4 seed, to this Georgetown team could potentially be a 2 seed.
Yep.
Beating Villanova 3 times. They looked, and they didn't even just win on a last second shot or some crazy you know March Madness type thing, or it's of it wasn't like a crazy win for Georgetown. They took care of business against the Villanova squad that has been very highly regarded up until Georgetown beat them in their last match. So for me, that was incredibly impressive win, and I think it's going to be really impactful. I think Georgetown they've locked themselves into at least a 3 seed, and that's big in itself. But we could see this Georgetown team end up with a 2 seed tonight when it comes for time for matchup Monday show.
I think they're 2 seed. I went through and did all 16 seeds, and I didn't necessarily seed them out into bracket by bracket, but I did my seeding, all my 64. Georgetown's a 2 seed. They're to me the second best 2 seed right now because of that. They're the second ranked 2 seed, number 6th overall if you want to go that route. This was a beatdown in the second half. This is a team that has shown no fear. I continue to say this over and over and over again. The 2-6 run from Georgetown in the middle of the season, I think it was January to March. We continue to hold that, and that's reasonably so. This point in the sand where we say Georgetown's just not good, man. They went 2-6, but you remove that, and this is a 20-2 basketball team who has beat Villanova, who has been at one point the number 1 ranked team in the entire country 3 times. I think that is a massively impactful win because, and I said this with some of the other ones, I think pick your poison of Duke, Virginia Tech, Kentucky, Alabama, and Kansas, Texas. I'm not trying to cop out and say all 3 of those were impactful wins, but I'm going to say all 3 because I think the winner of those is getting a 1 seed. I think Kentucky should be a number 1 seed in Hoops area. I think Texas is going to be a number 1 seed. And then I still think Virginia Tech gets there. But those were big wins by all 3 of them to maintain that. And there is a legitimate difference between 1 and 2. It seems small, but you're playing a 16 seed first and then an 8 or 9 seed instead of a potentially a 7 seed. The what's going to be from the 6 to about the 8 seed siege and maybe even 9, those are going to be some really good basketball teams that I think we're going to argue one way or another. Well, they could be a 7 seed. Well, they could be a 9 seed. Well, maybe they're a 10 seed. Maybe they're there is just no real difference between those over the long haul. I think a lot of that seeding is going to be influenced by who played last. So I think to me it's just those teams secured the number 1 seed, and to your point, Georgetown now is going to be locking up. In my opinion, they should be number 2. In my opinion, they should be number 2. We'll find out on later tonight what that determined. All right, let's go to the other side of the coin. Which loss do you think was the most impactful?
I hate to stay in the same place, but to me, it's Villanova. It's
Okay.
Villanova's loss. Because when I look at the other ones, I look at Virginia Tech. I think this Virginia Tech team is still a 1 seed, right? I don't think
Yes.
that this does enough. If they had lost to someone else in the conference championship, maybe they drop from a 1 seed, likely. But they lost to Duke, who is likely the number 1 overall seed after this win. To be
Yep.
honest, maybe you could call it most impactful because this game was really, to me in my head, playing for the number 1 overall seed. The winner of this game was going to get the number 1 overall seed. But either way, both of these teams were number 1s. Kentucky, Alabama, maybe Alabama drops to a 2 seed. I think that would be reasonable. But at the end of the day, I don't know if that's impactful enough. I think Villanova, look, they're likely a 2 seed now. They're likely a 2 seed with Georgetown, but it's a bad look
Mm-hmm.
to lose to this Georgetown team 3 times
3
during the
times.
season and twice in a row. Because
Yeah.
what that says to me is you just lost to them a week ago. You just lost to Georgetown a week ago. So to me, that shows a hole in coaching and ability to adjust and ability to evaluate your opponent and come back a little stronger. Because again, it was a close enough game, but it wasn't like a close finish. Georgetown beat them. They handled business. This sounds crazy, but Villanova could drop to a 3 seed after the crazy run they
Ooh.
had and how long they held that number 1 spot. I think without this, if they win this game, they potentially played themselves back into a 1 seed. But with this loss, it's a stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them drop down to a 3 seed.
That would seem dramatic to me because if we were to do a top 25 re-rank, I don't, losing to the 10 seed, I would probably still put Georgetown as a top 8, or excuse me, Villanova as a top 8 team in the country. But this was impactful. If they win, they're a number 1 seed. I mean, it's as simple as that. I think if they win, we don't see Virginia Tech, in my opinion, as a 1 seed in that case. I think Villanova's the 1 and Virginia Tech falls to a number 2. So I think that's where the impact for Villanova is. But to me, the biggest loss was Memphis. I think Memphis had a real shot at getting. I don't think they were making it to a 1 seed, but they were going to be a 2 seed. With that win, with the loss, this is a 3. This might even be a 4 seed. With Memphis, because now you look around the rest of the top 25 and you say, okay, so I have to take Memphis, who just lost by 15 points at home to Jackson State, who had no answers. Are they better than Louisville? Are they better than Arkansas? Are they better than Iowa? Like, I don't know that they are, and that takes us all the way down to 12 in the latest top 25. So now they're starting to be compared against Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, UCLA, who just bull rushed Utah. Like, do I think Memphis right now is a better team than UCLA? I don't
I don't
know
know.
that
I don't
they
know if
are.
they are. Yeah,
So
I don't think so.
right. So to me, I think that's the biggest loss. You lose by 15 at home in a second half that you looked overmatched. How far does Memphis fall is going to be a big question mark as we look at the top 20 or the Hoopsteria seeding tomorrow and matchup or tonight. I keep saying tonight in matchup Monday, because that's going to be a big moment. It's the one of the big things I'm going to be looking at is, as we see, I assume we're going to get these, 1 seeds, 2 seeds, 3 seeds, so on. I'm going to be watching for Memphis. Where do we see Memphis end up? They're not a 2 seed anymore. Their ceiling is a 3 seed, but if they end up as a 4 seed, I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, it wasn't, like you mentioned earlier in the show, it just wasn't a pretty loss either. And I know it's
Mm-hmm.
weird to say a pretty loss. No such thing as a pretty loss, but like, this is an ugly loss, in my opinion. Like, it exposed a lot of holes in this Memphis team. And I'll be real, and this sounds like Captain Hindsight type stuff at this point. Memphis never really impressed me all that much. They play
Mm-hmm.
really fast, and I think they got most of their wins because they were able to play faster than their opponent, which is a leg up. That's huge. But we've seen time and time again that doesn't always necessarily work when it comes to postseason play. So that's kind
No.
of my take on that. I'm not 100% sure that I trust them anyways. A higher seed would have got them maybe some easier matchups across the board. But, yeah, this Memphis team is not – I don't know that they do it for me, especially not after this.
I will say one lesson that I've learned is Lace Darius Outlaw continues to be highly efficient, highly productive, and highly impactful, despite the fact that he has, both at the prep level and now in SimWorld U, has not had any support. He went 2 of 4. He shot the ball well from deep, 7 assists, 24 points, obviously. I feel a lot better about him as a SWBA prospect after that game. I really do. He was fantastic in that one, and I thought he had some pieces. I thought they were going to have some pieces to support him. They did not. He shot 61% as a team. They shot 47. I mean, that is a huge delta between those two things. All right, Siege, we are going to be hearing from you when you're not on the Hard in the Paint special for Matchup Monday, but we're gonna soon be hearing from you a little bit here in the coming days in the aftermath and lead up to Hoopsteria.
Of course. For contract reasons, I'm not allowed to be on the Monday matchup show, the Matchup Monday show, but you will be hearing my takes. Don't worry about that.
Well, we look forward to just that. Siege, thanks for tuning in, or thanks for joining us. Everyone else, thank you for tuning in here on a Monday morning in the aftermath of college basketball conference championship games. We will be back tomorrow morning recapping all that the seeding brings us and previewing our favorite matchups on a Tuesday morning. So thank you so much, Siege. We'll talk to you again soon, and everyone else here on SimWorld TV. The only place you can see the game, be the game.